That's. Water and bread. And I can just close this out, right? Uh-huh. So then I'm house.
They're all here.
She had about 7 years ago today.
Look at mine. I see there. I'm members.
Just like, you know.
Yeah. Oh, right here, it's passed on 6 and then it was. Got it. Okay, just sometimes. Got it. Last week, I couldn't find out halfway through our loop, it's like. Yeah, she has.
Yeah. Yeah, she's already.
Get on there. Yeah, it's the same problem. That's. I'm trying.
I can't get on.
Uh-oh.
Well, I was on my favorite chair.
Yeah. Sure. I've got one.
It says that after a year, it'll say connects and then it says no. Well, she can't get it. Chris, you're on. Jared, I'm on. HRG.
I did it through the chair. I don't even know what the phone how I did it. Yeah, I guess. Is that what I think? I think that's what I did. I think it's because it makes people work connected. Well, you see it before, I didn't see it for a long time, so I didn't go check. And every salt of that, I'm on hard to miss it. I just checked. I mean, I all my. I've got a sneak maintenance, I bet it is. There's a message on you. Oh. We are. I like that. Me too.
No, I was going to make a correction to this. But, I did think it had actually downloaded all the files for this. So I'm good with that. I should be good. Let me go online first.
Yeah, all right, and I have words for you, really, kind of,
Yeah.
I'm really good. You're right there. And a lot of, the same thing, and reviewed it over and over. Now, I got, I had to get that estimate. It's not that they mind, but I got one as I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, and understood that. Sorry. I think it's perfect.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for the 3-minute delay. 7:03, I'm going to call the June 12th Harpersburg Town Council meeting to order. Let the record reflect all members of the council are physically present and approximately 12 members of the public are also present. Would you all please rise and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Council, I am requesting that agenda item 4, C Charlie, number 6, 4, 6, Roman numeral 6 be tabled. Which one was that? 4, C, 6 be tabled. Any other?
Yes, I'd like to possibly put two of our items 4A2 and 4C8 to executive section. Or we can talk about it.
Let's discuss that with the caveat that we get into privacy issues of a personal nature that out of the way, and I want to try to do both of those in the clear.
Okay, and then I have one more, if we could move 4II, I like that, 4II. Up, move it up, so it should be clear, it's a small item and it should be cleared up.
Where do you want it to go, Chris?
I'd like to move it up to move before the police report. It's just 4. Right.
Okay, so you want 4II to proceed 4A.
Right.
Okay. Any other suggested corrections? They will have a motion to make both of those revisions.
So move.
Second on the motion, second from Chris, discussion on the motion. All those in favor of the motion? Okay, the agenda is altered to reflect our will. Public comment, we have one submittal. I'm going to ask the recorder to read this for the record.
Good. This letter is from Cheryl Gallant. Dear Mayor and Town Council, I see on the agenda an item about disbursement of funds for the Woodpecker Woods Trail project. Unfortunately, I have a firm commitment tonight, but would like to offer comments for the record. Wondering how much Harpers Ferry is paying for this. The Woodpecker Woods involve 5 jurisdictions: Harpers Ferry, Bolivar, Park Service, DNR, and the county as well, since the woods around Bolivar Heights are county jurisdiction. Also wondering why no forewarning for residents impacted, but then this project did not go through the full planning commission. I believe that the trails project should be reviewed by the planning commission prior to approval of town funds. I and others would like to see a map or boundaries of the project and the entire scope of the project. Perhaps the planning matter should be tabled until matters are straightened out. I can inform you that I have retained counsel regarding the trails trespass on my 2 private acres in these woods, bought solely for the protection of woods and wildlife. Another landowner's property was also trespassed and the trail was rerouted. The plats for acreage in the woods should be reviewed since even more private sections could be affected. You are aware of my opposition to despoiling the natural woods and deer trails on the specific land Brad Nash gave to DNR, with his wish to save it from development and instead for wildlife and recreation. Trails Project people who never knew Brad nevertheless say his wishes are being followed. In the 35 years since Brad made this donation to DNR, it has provided recreation for resident hikers on deer trails with no impact on wildlife because the terrain remained undisturbed. Some of the big problems in the woods that were related to DNR about its property are overstated and remain unsubstantiated by those residents who hike the woods regularly. It has been over 50 years since the Earth Day movement began in 1970, and maybe it's time to re-examine our use of the earth. It was great that trails started abounding, especially in urban, suburban areas for the benefit of citizens seeking the outdoors. Creative idea. But this is wild and wonderful West Virginia. Its uniqueness in peril from an excess of gentrification of trails and forests, especially unnecessary, since Harper's Ferry is already awash in open trails and recreational opportunities.
Thank you, Kevin. Mayor's announcements, I have none. Approval of minutes, item number 2, regular meeting, May 8th, 2023.
A very minor one, on the other organizations report, Big Pool, Maryland should read Poolsville, Maryland. And I don't know whether it's already been corrected, Kevin, that on that 1 second, I saw a District J.
I saw that too. For a name.
It was on 4D6. And I was wondering if the J was meant that Jerry seconded that.
Probably so. What was the number on the first one was?
That was 4I. Other organizations.
Any other modifications, corrections, additions? Motion to approve with the modifications. Motion from.
Yeah.
Storm.
It made that it says.
Thanks, Storm. We have a second on the motion to approve. We have a second from Jerry. Discussion on the motion to approve. All those in favor of the motion to approve? Thank you. 3A, 3B. Debbie, for your chair or sitting in that chair right now.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The financial report here this evening are for the end of April 2023, which is 83% of our fiscal 2023. For the general fund, our budget numbers represent revision 4. Targeted operating income is now $1,207,500, and our income as of the end of April represents 95% of that particular operating income for the year under that revision. April is a month in which we receive an abundance of quarterly tax payments, so it's kind of skewed a bit. Our operating expenses are 80% of that budgeted for the year, and in revision 4, which is kind of a revision 5, excuse me, coming to you later in the meeting, we will move to target the income and revise some expenses more accurately so that closeout of the financial year is more accurate. For Waterworks, the budgeted numbers represent revision 4. Division 5 will be in effect at the end of May financials for next month. And the overall revenue received for April is 80%. And our operating income is $756,336 or 83.5%. And then water received specifically are at 82.4. So very close to the percentage of the year that we have completed there. For operating expenses, we've consumed 83.5% of budgeted. The 47,000 The bottom shows a negative there, which is the current lockout zone at the end of April. And Revision 6 will be presented later in the meeting. For Revision 5, this not the rest of the meeting. Let's close out here. Any questions?
I did want to say that, just a little more detail so everyone knows, the number one revenue source of town is sales taxes, and we're over 107%. 107%.
As of that revision.
Of that revision, and that's still 2 months yet to go. So that's good to see. Also, the numbers for the parking for the town was right on at 84% of the town percentage of 83, and then the third largest was business and occupancy tax at 80%. So those numbers looking real strong, and I hope they continue. But obviously, we're moving into the season. I expect more goodness. And I don't think it's a revision 5.
Yep.
Yeah. So I move to approve the April 2023 financial reports for the general fund and water department.
Second on the motion to approve, second from Chris, any discussion on the motion to approve the finance? All those in favor of the motion to approve? Excuse me, that's 7-0, thank you. Debbie?
So the next item is for your checks over purchase potential. We just had one, and this is actually part of the end of the snow removal contract, this cleaning up the streets, so.
Snow. Yeah.
Cleaning out the street. So that was the only one.
Move to approve the invoices and purchases over purchasing threshold and present.
Second on the motion to approve, second from Chris, discussion on the motion to approve over threshold. All those in favor of the motion? 7-0, thank you. Thank you, Debbie. For I. Are you gonna handle this?
I'll handle it, or
Patty?
Patty, you gonna handle it? Okay, I want to make sure it got handled. All right.
Good evening, everyone. Recently, the town received a request for hearing before the Board of Zoning Appeals for a code interpretation. And we had a discussion at the BZA meeting and felt that an applicant shouldn't have to pay for a code interpretation. So if you look at the current form, there are 4 reasons why you have a hearing: a variance, conditional use, appeal of a ruling, demolition review, and code interpretation. So Kevin and I talked to Jefferson County and we asked them how do they handle code interpretation. And they said their process is if a citizen or anyone wants an interpretation of our code, they send their request in writing. The ordinance compliance officer would review it and respond. If the person with the request is not happy, then they can request a hearing for either a variance or a conditional use or whatever they were going after. So what we're asking tonight is for the town council to approve the removal of code interpretation as something that the Board of Zoning Appeals will have to have a hearing on. Because even though there's a fee associated with it, part of the fee was waived, but a hearing requires a 2-week notice in the paper, and that's a cost to the town. And we just felt that that was unnecessary for code interpretation. And then what we'd like to do further with the BZA is make a separate form for each type of hearing. So if you want a demo, you select the demo. You don't have to figure it out on this current form. But we weren't ready for that for tonight. We're just asking for the removal of code interpretation. And with that said, what we would like to do with the person that submitted it, they initially did not have a check with their application, but they did submit one several days later. We wrote them a note and said, we are going to go to town council, get the approval to have it removed, and then if with everyone's permission, we would just return that check and then set the process in that email. This is what we need to do.
Just 2 questions. One is to clarify that this will now be mirroring the Jefferson County policy on when you charge and we're not.
Well, on code interpretation.
Yes.
Yes, and there's no fee at Jefferson County.
Right.
There's no fee.
Another question, Does anybody remember why it was added as a fee in the first place?
No, this form goes back to 2017, as far as I know.
And I believe it's not in our ordinance. And but I think we have two things going on here. We have a resident who needs to have that fee waived. I see that as one motion, and then I see then the form being changed, but this person's already instigated that. I don't think,
Well, initially, there was no check, so we figured, oh,
but it was there was a form and it had that. It's still on.
so what we would like to do is then permission to return that check. Because we're changing the process. Since the person submitted it.
Okay. Any other questions for Patty? Chris?
I think I'm ready to make a motion.
Go ahead.
We just take care of both of them. I move to eliminate all fees from code interpretation and to eliminate code interpretation from the BZA hearing forms.
Is that correct?
There's a second on the motion. Is there a second on the motion? Second from Jared. Discussion on the motion, Christie.
I still think you need on the form to have the fact that they need an interpretation. Without paying a fee. Is that where we're gonna
No,
go?
no,
So
our
that they-
policy, we would write a policy, and the policy would be, if someone would like a code interpretation, they would send the OCO an email with their question. And that's how you would get it. I mean, I can't think of how many times this has even come up. But it felt unfair
Oh,
to charge somebody.
I'm not disagreeing that. I just want to make sure that they can still ask for an interpretation.
By email. But it wouldn't be a form, you would not submit a form.
It would not be on the hearing form by my motion.
Right, it'd only be if it's declined, then they would go to BZA, correct?
Correct, and they would, you know, if they could. I mean, it really wouldn't even be an appeal of a ruling. I mean, if someone's not happy with their code interpretation, I'm not sure where they would go.
Is this pre-permit or after permit?
I guess anytime.
It could be anytime.
Okay. I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm
no, it's a
just
good
trying
question.
to-
It's a good question. It could be anytime.
And if we feel like there's a need to create a new form for code interpretation, we can do that.
Not that there is, because it's not tied to a particular project, there's nothing to appeal, they would either choose to go ahead with the project, and at that point, it would become a different BZA action.
And they would fill out a zoning compliance permit application, and then if there was anything in that, depending on what Kevin saw, it may have to go to landmarks, it may need to go to planning, depending on what it might be, or it may go to BZA, and then they would have, you know, for a particular reason.
So right now, the real procedure is the Kevin Hamilton makes these calls. Somebody sends them an email.
However, on this one, this one's very complicated, and information was sent back and forth a lot. And we thought the applicant would come back with a variance request. But instead, when he looked at this form, he saw code interpretation. So he checked that. So we were back to square one. He most likely would have been asked for a variance on his project.
Let's not forget that since 2017, this has probably happened once. Okay, so we'll get some experience without it being on there, and then maybe in, 2026.
I just want to make sure. we're not-
Set the timer.
So I think Kristen's right, since the person already submitted the check before we're making this decision, you would have to waive that for a previous request. And then
That's all I'm
going
saying.
forward, we would take this request off the form.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
I guess I'm gonna get it.
Thank you, Patty.
Thanks.
Police report. Once you sit, one of these two chairs.
Good evening, council. Just want to give you the report for May, 2023, zero accidents. There were 2 call outs from them, and no assists. And 142 citations and 145 incidents for a month. I also would just like to, let you know that the department will be participating in a national night out on August 1st. At the Home Depot area. All the departments are coming together to show off some new equipment. Get to know the community about new bags and things like that. For people getting their jobs.
You know the time on that, Chief?
I believe it's from 7 to 9.
1800, the two.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
And what was the date on it again?
August 1st. We're also asking the American Association to participate in donation of water, and the businesses will be listed on a table as well as labels for of the water bottles. So what else has been heading that up for the department? Being with the they had a meeting at the sheriff's office, and we coming together from there. Saying what they're going to be doing for that. So I want to thank her for taking the time to work on that for the department.
It's a good event, council, if you have an opportunity, or anybody in here have an opportunity to attend that. So learning, you will learn a lot of things.
I hope it will be publicized, so it is being.
7, 8.
Okay. Any other questions on Chief's monthly report?
No, thank you, Chief.
Let's go to agenda item 4, Roman numeral 2. Melissa, could you bring your date or whatever and pull it up and sit? You, the reason I'm asking for Alyssa is that she's been working very closely with the chief on this, and they have some information to share. I want to try to do this in the clear. If there are some discussions that start, in my opinion, to invade personal privacy of an employee, then I will stop the discussion and then proceed into executive session. But I like to do this in clear. Go ahead, Chief.
So we put together back in 2022 a pay scale and planning for the department, and I presented to the budget and finance team that we're current staffing and wanting to do promotions. We currently have a part-time chief, full-time sergeant. I asked for 2 full-time corporal slots that aren't filled, and I have 2 patrolmen that qualify for those 2 positions. We have 2 available, and I have 2 that qualify. And when we push those guys into that testing, aren't required to give a test board because they both are eligible, and we have 2 slots that are currently open for that promotion. And the mayor and I constantly need to have a plan where we're trying to move the department forward and trying to get prepared for future events that may or may not be occurring soon. But I just want to have the officers trained and staffed up in these supervision divisions to help supervise the department and do the department in the forward motion. So the mayor and I constantly want to and having the support of the mayor and the council has really benefited the department a lot. From where we were, the last administration, number 1, moved it forward some, and the mayor Vaughn has and council has continued to press that issue, saying that we're providing the service to our community that is satisfactory to all. And saying that the performance evaluations have also been completed on these officers. Everybody was above standard, had the necessary needs that they need to do for promotions and all. I've been sending the guys to additional training, supervisory classes. I want to be a range officer, and I've sent one to evidence to manage the evidence for the force. Those are crucial things in assisting me and the sergeant. And as these duties are thrown on, I think a promotion would be much rewarded for them. DJ's been here for several years, and Corbin's going on year 3. So they're due for their promotions, and I'm asking the support of council to be able to
So it's to summarize, even though there's not a formal test, there have been specific training that is equivalent to that.
Yes, sir.
Which is the reason for that promotion from patrolman to corporal.
Yes. Also, you know, we put the pay scale together, I'm just gonna go on over that.
That later.
Okay.
I will say that as was done with Mike Armstrong, he was promoted. How long ago was that?
Mike was probably promoted 10 years ago. He's been for a while.
So he's been promoted to sergeant when he was a corporal, and when he was promoted to sergeant. It was a result of accretion of duties and responsibilities, so his duties and responsibility was increased along with his promotion to sergeant. So it's not just for they're getting promoted. They are accredited and their duties and responsibilities are enhanced, so. With each one, and that will be the same way with Steve and what's officer?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's his?
Dan.
Daniel, I knew that. So anyway, that's where we are, and thanks for that, chief. I'll just leave it up to the council now.
Yes, I'm sorry, can we do it?
You know, I don't have one name.
Yeah, we don't have one on the form.
We only have one name on the form.
So we have Daniel Ruff.
There's two attached.
There's two, second one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't.
Well, those of us that have hard copies.
I have hard copy too, but it didn't come.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Operational officers.
What with
They
four.
were not supplied in
A.
It was originally two.
You
They did it as
you
one.
put your attachments, say attachment number 1 to that, and then attachment number 2. There's two separate PDFs.
When you have two copies, 'cause that's what our original submitted. But they put it on their one agenda item, so.
Who ran for paper work?
Okay.
You need to see mine.
Yeah, let me look at it.
So each officer has a 2-page justification from the chief. Plus the approved staffing plan that this council approved on October 10th last year.
I don't vote on this.
I just want to make sure the motion is right, so we don't accidentally promote that to death.
Yeah, they're both gonna be.
Okay, I move to approve promotion of Daniel Ruffner from patrolman to corporal effective July 1, 2023. And, it's better to separate here. You can do it together. And, no, sorry, the second, Steve Corbin. And to promote Steve Corbin for promotion from patrolman to corporal effective July 1st, 2023.
Second on the motion. Second from Chris, discussion on the motion to approve. Chris. Just a second.
That's it.
We have
Discussion.
discussion.
No, I'm good. I'm confused, but I'm good.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve?
Aye.
Congratulations to you. Thank you, so. So we will go to, this. Steve, I guess we're gonna come back to you.
Later on.
Yeah, where is that for list?
8.
For Department of Action,
You have it down.
CA.
That was budget finance.
to you on, in about,
Now.
we'll be back in that 3 minutes.
Any other questions that I can think of that anybody has with the department?
No, thanks for moving the department forward.
Thank you.
Okay, chief. Ordinance, you have your report. If there's any questions you have. Patty works very closely with Kevin, so, and anytime during the week, night or day. you have questions about Kevin and you can't get a hold of him, just get a hold of Patty. And, because she works very closely with him, most of every Wednesday morning, most of the morning. Budget and finance, discussion action regarding FY 24 purchasing threshold guideline. Who's handling this, Debbie or Kristen or?
We could both. But I'll let you start. No, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. So every year we go through, we have to have our, we update our purchasing and procurement process for the Corporation of Harpers Ferry. And we made some slight changes, well, at budget and finance meeting that we had this past week. And so we had to change some of the amounts here to make them, because things have gone up. So we have to reflect that in our approvals. Which was the internet service that's gone up, cell service has gone up, maintenance for auto fuel for the vehicles, but mostly the police vehicles. Waste removal, town hall, and electrical and propane, everything's going up, so. We have to reflect that in our charts for the year, and if anything goes out or goes beyond these numbers, then we question them, and then we can I can visit with Deb, or we'll visit with the department head to figure out, what happened that month. And so we'll work on that, and then finally, we did on the very end, added a whole section for organizations outside of town government and our procedures on how to. When they're applying for in the spring for funds from our town, from our 403, from our economic development account, as well as our arts and humanities accounts. Anything work out?
No, it's good.
And to clarify the form, the blue shaded items,
That's
are the only changes.
That's
on
the only
pictures.
changes, right? We took it last year with this change.
So the idea behind the whole form is that you have known things each month that come up and not have to always come in front of council. So it's only when something pops out as being too expensive, then we review, and we do discuss them during budget finance, which precede town council meetings.
Chris,
I move to approve the fiscal year 2024 purchasing threshold guidelines as presented.
second on the motion. Second from Storm, discussion on budget to approve.
I'd like to just bring up, of course, our inflation has caused, especially fuel to rise. And that's a reason why that number has gone up. But I want to point out that we have voted in budget and finance, and also I think in town council, to add to our employee handbook that the employees who use vehicles should be reporting their mileage in a manual that's kept in the vehicle. I believe we voted for that to be our policy, and has that been put into force? Because I think that is a good way to just keep an eye on the mileage.
Well, that's a good point you bring up, and we are working on the service maintenance for the vehicles, the maintenance schedules for the vehicles. And I think we could tie them both together. I've been looking online, there's apps that we can use that would be done through a phone. And I found a pretty simple one, so each department can have their, on the app, and then they can update the information instead of writing it down on a piece of on a log or something. This way it's logged in a app. So I need to do a bit more research on it, but I think that may be a way to go.
Let me defer to Steve and the chief. I know Steve at the water. Steve and I have discussed this, and I don't know whether you've had an opportunity, how far deep you have gotten into this. And then, Chief, I'm going to come to you and ask you also about, Laurel's question about tracking the usage on the cruisers. So, Steve.
So, I was looking into an app. This was before the first of the year, and it wasn't clear when this may or may not go into effect.
I have not implemented anything in terms of paper log at this point. I think that an app, an appropriate app would be a good way to do this with some kind of a monitoring device. And I think it would really be, a good idea to be able to see where the vehicles are going and all the rest. When I was looking at it, to put on 3 vehicles, it really seemed to be cost effective at that point with my budget. So it's just kind of gone into limbo, but I think that bringing in the maintenance truck, and the police cruisers might help to, spread the costs associated with the app.
Is there an onboarding fee that's?
They're all different and all the rest. I think there's a certain level of overhead that even if it's not their fees, it's our own kind of management of the app and this, that, and everything. And it's quite honestly, like I said, for me to do it, but my 3 vehicles just wasn't something I was ready to take on.
Chief, how about the police cruisers? So our vehicles are tracked when we purchase our gas. There's a lot of idling time that goes in with our vehicles. That is very costly. Very seldom do the officers shut their cars off unless they're in the office. Well, on road, we're always in a ready to go position. So our cars are constantly running. That's probably some of the cost of our vehicles, but we're tracking ours with the knowledge. Every time we purchase gas, we enter in the knowledge. And we turn our receipts into for less.
Okay. All right, any other discussion?
I just want to say that I hope just consider the beginning of the paper logs, since the apps are not readily available, it wouldn't hurt to get our employees just used to reporting. So just something I want to ask that you consider that.
Thank you. Anything other? Okay, all those, a motion?
Yeah, we did, we all, yes.
All those in favor of the motion?
Okay, next. All right. Discussion and action regarding funding for the fiscal year 2023. Music on the Ridge. The event, if any of you came, unbelievable. It was a great job, Parks and Rec. Thank you, Patty, for your hard work. It was well done with excellent music. I don't know who brought that weather in, but it was really, and it was a nice turnout. And I hope we can do it again next year and the same location. I think this is pretty special. Yes. There was an issue though that came up last second. Patty told us about it as soon as she found out. The event took place on the National Park Service grounds, and we assumed that we would be able to use their electric power. And we misassumed that. So we did not have access to electric power. Without electric power, we would not have been able to put on the event. So Patty quickly found a generator that was brought up here. But by the way, the shipment of the generator back and forth costs more than renting the generator.
So it'd be cost effective if we made it a week-long event.
Get our money's worth out of it, right? So other than that, so there was additional cost. So I moved to approve that we set up an additional $700 from the 906 Arts and Humanity for the fiscal year 2023 Music on the Ridge.
Second on the motion.
Second,
We have a second from Storm, discussion on the motion.
just one item, just to, we discussed it in budget and finance, just for the cost of the event. It was super successful. To try to do some more things to promote a little more widely, just kind of the cost per head is a lot, but it would be, if we had more folks there. But I'm confident that after the fun that everybody had this year, that the word is going to spread. And that it'll look like a very cheap and valuable ticket next year.
Discussion.
I was a little confused on the paperwork for this one, that some of it is paid through this motion and some of it is being deferred to the next event. Did I Is
No,
it
this
standard
is,
or-
So they had an up to number, and so the cost of that absorbed some of it, but not all of it. So they're adding $700 to the total
Okay,
for the whole
Okay.
event.
it's up to because part of it's known, which is generator cost, but there was also an outstanding
another small
invoice
bill.
for signage. We didn't know the exact amount, so we rounded up.
got it, thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
I do want to echo, I guess it was Christian's comment regarding the event. I do, Patty's not looking at me, she's hiding behind. It's hiding here in a minute, but I do, Patty, want to extend my personal thanks to you because I watched Patty's hair turn my shade and then it got darker. I mean, the amount of coordination, you have no idea the amount of coordination Storm does to put an event like this together. With all of the entities and bringing them all to conclude on Saturday at 5 o'clock was amazing. And you did a very, very wonderful job representing the town, Patty. Thank you so much.
It was quality.
Thank you.
Yep, I'll keep on going. We got a lot. Discussion action regarding fiscal year 2020. Oh, wait, move up one, sorry. Discussion action regarding fiscal year 2020 disbursement of funds for the 4th of July band. So every year, I don't know how many years, it's been decades, many decades, the Roarsville town band.
That's how they pronounce it.
I don't know. I don't know what state it's in, but they're really cool people. They're so nice and they play beautiful music on 4th of July. And so Budget and Finance has looked into this and again, we supported it. And so I moved to approve up to $400 from the 906 Arts and Humanities to be dispersed to the Roarsville band for the 4th of July music performance.
Second on the motion, second from Chris, discussion on the motion to approve. All those in favor of the motion to approve?
Got it. Okay, now the next one, another part here. Okay, here we go. Discussion and action regarding fiscal year 2023 disbursement of funds to Jefferson County Parks and Recreation for 4th of July fireworks. What? What did I say?
That's right.
Oh,
All right.
oh, yeah, sorry, I was looking wrong.
Okay. I'm not the only one making errors. So this one, they've asked, the county asked, well, the county's participating, all the towns are participating, and so is the town, and we will be getting recognition in their signs and literature that they may have at that event. So it's so I moved to approve up to $500 from 402 Economic Development to be dispersed to the JCPR for the 4th of July fireworks event pending appropriate documentation.
Second on the motion to approve. Second from Chris, discussion on the motion. I do have a discussion point. Christian, is this a Jefferson County Commission initiative requesting money from Harper's Ferry?
I do know that they requested money from all of the towns in the county, all the jurisdictions.
Jefferson County Commission has.
And Jefferson County is putting in money.
I guess the question is, do we know if it was asked by Parks and Rec or by the commission?
Or by the rec? I want to remind this council.
Yeah.
That this town went to the county commission. Personally. Jerry was there. Who else was there? They requested a support for a much needed water distribution project. I appeared personally before the county commission, testified. They gave us no consideration, including $13 million that they got from the federal government. I appealed their decision not to give us anything. They didn't have the courtesy to even respond to an appeal. I just want this council to know that this is the same county commission now requesting money from this town to support an initiative.
I feel
It is Parks and Rec.
okay, I feel it's a
It's-
material
I-
difference because, you know, I don't know the county very well. But it seems like they've been making cuts in a lot of places, and if we're helping Parks and Rec, those are the people who are actually doing the work. of the county.
And I feel for you, I know, it was awful, because I was at that commission, and they just kind of turned us down hard. But this Parks and Rec, one of our residents in town actually works in Parks and Rec, and he tells me how difficult it is for them to raise funds. They have to raise their own funding. And so
And the initial ask came to me in an email from a member of the Parks and Rec board.
Jared?
Was a specific figure requested? I'm concerned as to whether our contribution proportionate to our population was.
They did.
Was it? I didn't.
I believe it was.
Yes, I remember that. It was specifically $500.
But was it, I mean, are they asking for the same amount or more from
I
Paul?
No, they were asking more and more.
Yeah, I think the overall amount, if I remember correctly, was 5,000, and so we're doing, there was a bigger number, and we're only doing $500.
So we'll still get equal promotional benefit.
Sure.
I just think it's for like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
any other discussion?
I'm really pleased that we are having fireworks back again. But those of us who've been long-term residents used to really enjoy going up to the Bolivar, the battlefield. And at that point, the Park Service underwrote the expenses, and it really was an annual, a wonderful family event, a wonderful event. And it's a little more distant for us to go to the county. I think it would be really nice to have fireworks available again for the county, so I support that. My main concern, I share the same concern that Greg did as to who was getting the money, and also whether our contribution would be in line with our population.
Thank you, Jerry. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Christian, the fire department?
Yeah, here we go. Discussion action regarding fiscal year 2023 disbursement of funds to the fire department. We support our fire department every year, and I'd like to move to approve $3,675 from the general fund and $385 from the full severance fund to be dispersed to the Friendship Fire Department for fiscal year 2023.
Have a second on the motion. Second, to Storm, discussion on the motion to approve. Chris?
Actually, just a slight correction that it's a fire company, not fire department.
So.
If you in a
Yes.
second accept that correction.
Yes, the second makes sense.
Any other discussion?
Except,
Is there any, is this going toward the, I mean, the ambulance service is no longer controlled by our fire department, that's a
goes to fire.
yes. Okay. So this just goes to firefighter.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
This one. The fire pump versus funds.
Repair
We're skipping the fire, the wood.
Right.
wooden unit. Correct, okay. Discussion and action regarding maintenance and repair of the lower town stairway steps. We have a serious problem with our stairs, even the stairs between High Street and Tillman Street. Our treads are literally falling apart. And so the town has decided we need to move on this a lot quicker than we were gonna do it later, but we can't wait. We need to get these repaired and it's just the treads that are going to be replaced and painted, primed and painted. So I move to approve maintenance plan for the repair of the lower town steps to include primer, new treads for up to $4,000, split between $750 street materials and supplies and contracted services as appropriate.
Your second on the motion, we have a second from Storm, discussion on the motion to approve. Kevin?
Is there a line number, a separate line number for contracted services?
They're both under
No,
750.
they're both under 750.
And this is, there's a longer term when finance is allowed to actually replace the
The
entire
whole
steps,
thing, yeah.
but this will bridge us until that point.
And this is the long flight. right?
Yeah, the long flight. What's happened is there's two stairs on a stringer and there's two treads and there should be one, not two. And so the one is loosening and they're nailed in, it should be screwed in. So Larry's gonna, our maintenance department is going to do a real professional job in repairing them.
We got a motion. Did we get a second? Okay, any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye. Okay, another one. So this is discussion action regarding the Harpers Ferry Police Department wage scale increases.
Okay, Chief, I'm gonna have you come up again, and Melissa, feel free if you want to come up. If not, you can stay there.
He can handle it.
All right.
I have faith in him.
Okay.
I gave him notes.
So I said before, last year we implemented a pay scale for the officers. In their performance. The officers met their performance. Guidance under that, the officers will be going from step 1 to step 2. With the two, oh, sorry, it'll be going from step 1 to a step 2, and the other officers as well. Would be taking the steps as well, so with those steps, I believe it was a word of town. For their increases, I believe it was 3%. With that set.
I move to approve the police department step increases as presented effective July 1, 2023.
Second that.
Discussion on what to approve. The only discussion I'll mention is this will be the first.
Yes.
Police department on a new pay scale that we have. Remember, they were done first and then who was second, which is the water. Water came in when?
In October.
In October, and then office came in.
December.
So this will be the first of 2 more to come. So they've met their year.
And do you feel like it's been a helpful thing for everybody?
I believe having the pay scale has helped out a lot. There's been other agencies that wanted to take a look at what we've done. And we've been that, even though we're still at a higher pay grade than we are, they still like the way we set that pay scale up. I had some help and Greg bring us critique it a little bit. Finance it in budget finance. So I think it works out well for the officers in keeping the current staff in here. So we have a good team of officers that are about their community policing. We seem to communicate well with the community.
Thank you, Mayor Vaughn, for introducing this type of wage scale.
Yes. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion? Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. Congratulations to the officers. Yes, sir. The next item is the employee recognition program. And let me just make one comment on this. The state of West Virginia is a very unusual governing state. Jerry and I are very familiar with when you have an employee and there are plenty of opportunities to recognize employees for outstanding performance in the federal government. You have what's called a QSI, a quality step increase, you have annual performance rating, you have all kinds of awards that you give employees for going above and beyond their performance evaluation, their performance description, but not in West Virginia. West Virginia, we are prohibited from providing incentive pay to an employee for doing a good job. You just can't do it. But there is one program that you can institute, and we instituted it when, Debbie?
Last year.
Okay, and last year, and that is the continuous recognition program. And this is not based on performance, it's based on longevity, but you do have to meet a satisfactory performance rating. Is that right? Yeah, satisfactory performance rating every year, and that's it, just a minimal rating. And then be in service, and then there is, I forget the dollar amount for every year of continuous service. So that's one way that we can incentivize employees, not for doing like you can with the federal government, but it's just something that I believe the state of West Virginia at least allows us to pursue. So this is where we are, Christian.
Okay, so with that, I move to approve the payout the continuous service program to eligible employees for fiscal year 2023 on July 1st, 2023.
Got a second on the motion. Have a second from Chris. Discussion on the motion to approve.
Everyone was eligible for this increase.
Yeah, for all employees.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye. Okay, discussion action regarding fiscal year 2024 cost of living COLA increase for all our Pittsburgh employees. Obviously, we know there's inflation. We felt that the town, by the way, can afford to do this, and we felt that it's important to keep our wages competitive with other municipalities in West Virginia, and Maryland. So we feel that the COLA increase is needed. So we move to approve the fiscal year 2024 COLA increase of 5%, becoming effective July 1st, 2023.
Effective for wages earned starting July 1st.
Okay, you're correct.
Second on the
for it.
motion. Second from Storm. Thanks, Storm, for the question. Discussion on the motion?
I just want to remark that this is also the state employees have also received a 5% COLA.
Right.
Under line with the state.
It's good. Good point.
And, you know, we do for the county as well.
Other discussion? In the county, you do it too, Ted? Okay.
Who was the second? Sorry.
Storm. Other discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All right.
Okay.
Discussion action.
Another one. Okay, discussion action. Fiscal year 2023 general fund provision 5. Deb is going to. Our financial officer.
Yes.
He wants contacts.
So this is the proposed revision 5 for general fund, fiscal 23. The actual numbers that you see are based upon what we had available for the close of May at the time that this was prepared. You did review April close numbers at the top of the meeting. With the benefit of the majority of the year's receipts and expenses behind us, we're able to fine tune the income and cost centers as we come to a close. So overall, still using relatively conservative adjustments to the projected income. We're increasing the budget by $55,650. And in the expense section, there's a net increase of approximately $4,600 in overall operational costs, but that then allows us to increase our reserve and operating cash by $51,000 in your general government category. So any questions on?
We can afford it.
So we can, just to summarize, basically, because we budgeted conservatively, it was able to absorb some of the overages, it still have extra that we can put to reserves.
Exactly.
So I move to approve the fiscal year 2023 general fund budget revision 5 as presented.
Second from Storm. Second on the motion to approve revision number 5. All those in favor of the motion to approve?
Roll call. Storm Nicholson.
Aye.
Christian Petrofano.
Aye.
Chris Perry.
I vote aye.
Laurel Drake.
Aye.
Jerry.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Mayor.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you want to do revision 6?
Well, I'll start. Okay, discussion. Are we ready? Okay.
Yeah.
Discussion action regarding fiscal year 2023 waterworks budget revision 6.
Okay, so this is since we have not yet closed May revenue, which we're just working on that right now, your actual column represents activity as of May 31 that has an estimated water revenue number based on this year's projections and last year's actual income. I took a look at both of those and said, this is what it should end up being. We did have an increase in water tax and capacity improvement fees and, your expenses in this column also are based on all that we have in the fund recovery. Primary driver for this sixth revision is staffing issues and situations that were not apparent when the last revision was developed. And so the formulation now for plant operations is going to require a little bit more overtime for some operators than anticipated, and also some additional hours for our contracted labor. Also, these particular situations have put a little more demand on our works administrator, public works administrator, which, along with a handful of emergencies in the beginning of the year, necessitated some additional some overtime and extra hours that were not anticipated. So the other issue the other item that went up significantly was the insurance. Now that we have this new facility, when we look at the breakdown of insurance, even though we got a reduction in our premium, a big chunk of it sits with that facility. So that made a little bit of a change. Your net increase to expenses is about $4,700. So it's with your increase in your tax and your capital capacity that came in that period, the additional loss addition is still projected to be just $5,000. So it's not huge. We just had to move things around.
So I move to approve the fiscal year 2023 waterworks budget revision 6 as presented.
Second on the motion to approve. Second from Chris, discussion on the motion. All those in favor, Joe?
Aye.
Thanks, Eddie. Word department, Steve.
I want to start with actually congratulations to our of our staff, Ryan Slusher. He passed his qualification and test both on an operator and training for class 1. Actually passed back in March, the end of March, we just figured it out. Cochrane led survey. I don't know if Laurel will mention any of this thing in the report, but I do want to give a big thank you to the Water Commission, because they basically shoot that survey, and the Water Commission took that on and largely did 95 to 99% of that work. So a really big thing for us. Final items being addressed at the plant with regards to some of the, just trying to cross the last T's and not the I's. We've got some issues with minor leaks in the roof. Folks are on site today looking at that training to get that repaired. Alvarez, there was support for that, and got the telescoping valves. They work on coming up with a solution or fixing that for us as well. We do have our discharge permit. West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection issues us a discharge permit that's good for 5 years. And I just kind of realized that it is coming due a month from like today. So it expires on July the 18th. I have contacted somebody at DEP earlier today. Arrange to talk to her tomorrow and work out what we're going to do. We'll probably have to extend, so we could extend our current permit by file for big work. And that will give us time to get the renewal done. So hopefully we're just gonna make the time with all that. In terms of, we've also been working on the water meter radio reads. We have a committee that's met twice. Deb has distributed a sample RFP for services that we just kind of look at to try to look at. And she's also developed an initial draft for kind of a reading tool for what we get in response to the eventual RFP. So we're moving along on that as well. In terms of the bill for actual usage of a little over 3 million gallons. We filtered just under 6 million that we sent up to the tanks. So our loss in this month was about 47%. Realized that our timing when we read the meters and have usage bidding it's not exactly calendar month of production. But, that's kind of the general ballpark of it. All right. I think that's.
That's why we need to replace our pipes, right?
So is it basically whack-a-mole, where one gets solved and.
Yeah, we did some proactive work on, replacing a one that was not installed correctly and that, fixed leaks there 2 or 3 times and just, what was in the ground. Shot in the first place. So they did replace that, 2 that, were, that falls over on the Panama Street in Bolivar, there's. That, won't be interrupted in the election, they were voting. And, got others, I mean, we're still working on.
Yeah, thanks for being on.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for reporting the number, 47%, because. If you keep reporting that number every month, it's a number that can be compared to other utilities, and it's just a good thing to do. Just to remind ourselves of what we're doing.
And one other thing, I think since last time, speaking of numbers and all of that, I did send it was last month's ESD meeting, so I had one this week. But in any case, they're very interested in numbers, but especially numbers for 0 meters or inactive meters. We're taking a closer look at that. And I'm also working on, I think this is gonna, I suspect this is gonna come up in my discussion with the DEPs, like what we're doing and what our sludge removal plan is. We still have to kind of nail that one down, but hopefully the VFD might do what else. That they're looking at the
Actually, I can see.
Laurel would have mentioned.
I have several items, but it's not going to take long. One is the leak adjustment rate. We made a change to that in our ordinances, and we are Mr. Donaghy of the West Virginia PSC told me today that it has been approved. He'll send a letter out to us tomorrow. The day after we receive that letter, whether it's electronic or by mail, we can begin to apply the new rate. So that is done. The lead and copper sampling that we did this year that Steve mentioned, the results were all good for all 20 customers. We had to sample from 20 customers in our water district. All the results fell substantially below the action level of 15 parts per billion for lead. And there were good results for copper testing as well. Those results will be delivered to all 20 customers this week. And the results will be reported on our consumer confidence survey to the public as an aggregate of schools. For the budget, the 22-23 water budget, there was a shortfall of some 60 to 70,000 between our income and our expenses. So in a public water utility, it's supposed to come out 0. And so the reason for this, and I think Deb already mentioned this, due to higher manpower cost and extra overtime during the construction of the new plant and the cost of chemicals required for the new system of processing water, because we're processing water in a different way. Although those chemicals, thanks to Steve, he's cut the cost of that by 75% since he came on. The water department and the water commission are looking at ways to bring the costs in line with the income, because that's what's supposed to happen in a public water utility. To that end, another subject discussed by the Water Commission is the need for a monthly examination of the water usage and building of our 850 or so customers compared to previous usage. At no time in the history of this water utility has there ever been a regular examination of the water usage of our customers. To give an example, suppose our 3 largest customers used half as much water in May as they did in April. Then that would have an effect on our income in May, right? Because they used half as much. Well, we would notice that the income went down, but we wouldn't know why, because there's no regular report that produced that looks at a comparison of customer water usage over time. So that's why we need this, even for our largest customers, we don't have such a thing. And so we talked about that in Water Commission, and our Public Works Administrator is looking into establishing such a report. We had elections at our last Water Commission meeting, and Gino Cisco is consented to be vice chair. I just want to report the Water Commission would like for the new council liaison to be the new chairperson. So I'm the liaison to the Water Commission, and I'm also the chair. But since I'm leaving, both of those are empty, and the Water Commission would like the new liaison from the council to be the new chairperson. Thank you, that's all.
Any question for Laurel, Chris?
Well, first up, I'd like to thank Laurel for her great service to the Water Commission.
Yeah, here.
And I also had a question for you about the lead. Were the 20 samples, was there a good geographical spread throughout the town or the district spread?
Yes, that was one of the things that, along with, all of these results are sent to the state. And we also had to produce a map of our water district and mark where we got the samples. And there were several from Harper's Ferry and several from Bolivar.
And I'll echo, I think it would be, I'm surprised there hasn't been any comprehensive look, especially year over year. Rates for usage.
Thank you. Dan Marsh. Hello, I'm here. Jump. You want to stand over there?
Whatever's over the set.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, did you already talk about your? No, okay, so I'll just leave it brief. Appendix A. Hopefully, committee chairs have now received the link to that document with the edits. So hopefully you and David, I just sent it a few minutes ago.
Oh.
Please realize, I think Tommy's been working on the formatting of the document. I think that's part of what the delay was, but I was talking with Christian, we both feel you can read it and you can now comment, so it's there for your review.
Yeah, the numbers don't line up on the page. Don't get into the way it looks. Just it's the material.
And you are hoping for comments in July on that?
I guess I mean, if you're just receiving it now, we were thinking 2 months, right? And then that leads into your workflow questions. So since I haven't heard anything from my committee members, I don't know. Actually, Christian, I might ask you, did you have any
I thought it was good. They did a really good job on that.
I thought it was excellent.
Yeah, great
I mean, I
job.
know you had a handful of questions, so I'll take that on myself now that the Weaver activity is kind of lightening up a little bit now, so I can kind of take the lead now and answer those and get that done.
Okay.
All right. Tax credits, because the last time I was here,
I was very excited about residential tax credit programs. And I have put together the 2-page flyer that everybody should still have access to, that has been, maybe if you want to check your email boxes for tax credits, you should be able to find that email with the link to the document. It has been updated, has a lot of really valuable information. I've been sharing it with a lot of residents who I've been engaged with, who I know have either been doing work, because these programs can be used retroactively for projects up to 3 years in the past. So that's something important for people to realize, that even if you've already done the work, we can still help you get money for that work.
The value of saving your receipts.
Yeah, I mean, really, the thing is, it's there's a lot of flexibility. It really depends on the project. But it's worthwhile. I mean, for some of these projects, you know, it can be tens of thousands of dollars. And from there, we get to the thing that's really been taking up a lot of my time, which is the Wheaton project. And I think there's really good news on that front. To summarize, in 3 numbers, 10, 2, and 500. So we're well on our way to raising $10,000. And that's going to help us win $500,000 in restoration funding right here at the Gateway to Harper's Ferry.
Will it win it or give us the opportunity?
It'll help us get there for sure. So there are a couple stepping blocks to get to that. So the $500,000, those are the big ultra competitive federal National Park Service grants, which require no matching funds, but the more you can show in terms of community support, the more competitive you're going to be. And I tell you, this property and the story behind it is, from my discussions with West Virginia SHPO, is the most compelling project of its kind in all of West Virginia. So we're going to make it work. It's going to happen. I don't care if I have to sell lemonade for 6 months.
And we're, at this point, is this a landmarks project, or what's the status?
It's not officially sanctioned, but I haven't heard anybody on landmarks who's opposed to what we're trying to do. I just think the details in terms of the steps that we need to follow through, which are still a little bit, you know, they're still a little bit hazy, right? We got to start with a couple stepping projects, assessments, planning, economic feasibility, things like this. There are going to be grants through the National Trust. There's going to be grants through the state, but I've been talking with enough people that I think there's just no doubt that we're going to win these stepping stone grants in short order within the next couple of months, and apply for the big NPS grant, maybe 2 of them, before the end of the year.
And is it, who's applying for the grants?
Yes, organization, nonprofit that people may remember from 2001, late 2001. This is a contact that West Virginia SHPO introduced me to locally, who's a rising star in the African American community, leader of the NAACP chapter for Jefferson County. Her name is Jamila Fleet. She's a former Army interrogator, IT executive, and has been heavily involved with nonprofit pursuits for 10 years. And her organization, Innovative Community Solutions, has been working on many projects, primarily in Charlestown and Martinsburg. Fisherman's Hall is one. What's another? What's the other one?
No, I know the Fisherman's Hall, so
That's the big one. But she's got a lot going on, but that's who we're doing the work through, obviously, because this is still a privately owned property. That is one of the big questions that's still out there, is whether we're going to be ultra competitive if the property remains private ownership. Even though all of the current 7, soon to be 6 heir owners, Weaver family heir owners, have already signed a covenant agreement that will allow it to be attached to the deed of the property to allow public access to the property 12 times per year. And there are other requirements attached to that. And that's required for all federal grants of this type. Still, want to make sure that we're gonna win these grants, so, if it does help for the property to become truly public, then I think that's something that I'm looking to Storm to discuss.
Yeah, and to explain that $10,000, there's a matching grant to SHPO that will go on top of that. That's for an assessment, correct, at this point?
That's a more than $2 to $1 matching grant, correct?
And the output of that is gonna help inform what the options are, sure, what the property owners.
Sure, basically how much. Our current best estimate is still the estimate that Peter Dessauer, the park architect, did with me when we inspected the property. And his estimate was, listen, it may cost $500,000 to restore what's here, but the building is standing, and that's better than a lot of the competitors. And if it's standing, it qualifies for these grants. If you have a collapsed wall and I know the porch is starting to collapse, the porch is not historic. So I want to make sure a lot of people understand that when you're looking at this home, and when I initially looked at it, I thought, oh my gosh, it's done. You know, it's got, the termite damage must be terrible. But I went inside and out with Peter. He said, this can be saved. It may cost $500,000, but it can be saved. And there are a lot of worse and less historic properties that are actually considered the top 10 most important preservation structures. And that's the discussion I'm having with West Virginia SHPO, is that's why they're so confident that this can be restored, because the strength of our story and the condition of the structure, it's really not as bad as you might think.
And is it fair to say at this point, the town is not directly engaged, a lot is going to depend on what happens with the assessment, but there may be a direct role for the town at some point.
Sure. I mean,
I'd like to congratulate you on the single flyer that you distributed, which does tell a story. And led me to go to the GoFundMe site, which I think is very impressed with how quickly the funds that you've been raising, the goal as you've gone. And so it's a very hopeful sign that we can, you know, we're doing everything.
it's also, I gotta give credit to Storm, because he edits almost everything that I post, so he's excellent. I was shocked by how good he is. So,
We know that already.
yeah.
And one of the most encouraging things, not just the dollars that have been raised, but the number of people who've donated, and across the spectrum, it's approaching 100 individuals and organizations that cross every line in town. There are folks donating from out of town.
That's
It really feels like.
someone even donated from Britain or
Oh, yeah.
Australia.
Yeah, Britain,
Russia.
Yeah.
We've got foreign donations. I would say actually more than half of the donations are now external from the town.
Yeah, that's-
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for your hard work on this. I know, especially working with the family and trying to bring everyone together.
yeah, I should say quickly, I really do, because we got our biggest donation in value contribution just this week from Barbara Hume, who donated a bunch, over 200 signed limited edition prints of the well-known now, I think, Weaver House sketch by Kip. Skip Stoll, former mayor, architect. So we're gonna be using that to our best advantage. So, but I mean, that's probably $5,000 in value right there. So really helpful. And we've got major media coming, Washington Post, Frederick Times, Dartmouth Magazine wants to do the story, as well as West Virginia University. So, and the letter of support from West Virginia SHPO is on the way, and we also, through Storm, great work, just got a letter of support in process from the foundation. So I think that's,
Keep hitting hard, guy.
and I don't know, I'll probably defer chili cook-off event to you.
Oh, yeah.
Tease that. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, planning's been busy. At its May meeting, Planning Commission continued work on soliciting public comment on the comprehensive plan through the open house and various surveys. We also reviewed some fill and grading work underway at a town residence. Although the work was found to be under the threshold in area that would require a land disturbance permit, the commission had a good discussion with the property owner about the project and made some recommendations that might avoid future problems. Also in May, we considered an application from West Virginia Department of Highways for its planned work on the Armory Canal Trail that lies within the floodplain. The commission voted to waive any floodplain development permit because the work planned will only rebuild and improve structures on the old Potomac Street extended. That any diversion or alteration of the streams in question will be temporary, and that the town's approval is largely a formality in a project that must be approved by the Army Corps of Engineers. Finally, we had a brief discussion about the state's sidewalk project and the challenges in protecting some of the historic materials in such projects. I want to recognize Zach Morse and Christian here for doing some quick maneuvering to salvage some old bricks and stones in one sidewalk section. They and several others, I think some other folks here, it's been a good day in rebuilding a small section of the historic walkway in the 600 block, I think 600 block of Washington Street. So thank you. The comprehensive plan open house was held on May 22nd. Our West Virginia University consultant, Christy DeMuth, did a great job of planning the event. The entire planning commission showed up to help on it. And most importantly, we've had a great turnout. Sorting out all the comments and ideas is still underway. We'll begin reviewing those at our June and July meetings, and even more at the next meeting with Christy, which tentatively is August 3rd. Also at our June 20th meeting, we'll be launching some work on recommendations of the permit process, ad hoc committee for changes and improvements in our permit process. And along with some reports, I expect there may be an application from a property owner along Van Wert Paper Street to alter that public right of way that planning commission will be considering. So that's it from planning, unless there's any questions or.
Council?
No, that's plenty. That's a lot.
Thank you, Curtis. Kevin,
Nothing to report.
okay, town council,
I was going to talk about Weaver Gillison House, but that's been done.
okay,
Other than to say, one of the elements that's being discussed is a chili cook-off fundraiser, and it's still in the very, very loose planning stages. But for this body and for the town, one of the things we've talked about is like the property itself, probably not a good idea to have people on it. But to potentially have opening remarks from Town Hall Park, formerly known as Women's Club Park, which is of course in full view. But it's not ready to bring before town council yet, but that pot is definitely on the boil generally, so be ready for that with whoever is in the next council.
anything else? Christian,
Yeah, three things. The parking committee wasn't on the agenda, so we have this opportunity to bring parking into the discussion. I did some analysis of our numbers for the last 12 months. We've had 36,994 transactions. That's how many people, how many cars are parking in town. And if you think it might be, I think it might be about 3 to 3.5 visitors per car. And so that's between 118,000 to 128,000 visitors that we can account for. And we can do a better job than the Park Service does with their bus count. But so these are highly accurate numbers. And just so you're aware, the parking down at Potomac Street represents about 61% of our parking. And the reason we have, well, obviously it's a revenue source for the town, but another thing it does, it manages our parking so that there's turnover, particularly on Potomac Street. We don't want people parking there all day long. We want them to park a few hours, move on, go buy something in a Martha's store, for instance. Go buy something from Martha and have an ice cream cone or something and leave. Yeah, so that's one. Also, there was I subscribed to the Washington Post, and yesterday there was an article on Harper's Ferry, full page in the travel section, saying no car, no problem, ditch DC and take a train to Harper's Ferry. It was really nice. And then one thing, I'm on a committee called Wayfinding, I think it's Wayfinding Committee. It's a signed committee funded by the Jefferson County Visitors Bureau. There's 3 other members with me, town residents. We're gonna have our report out on June 30th from the JCCBD and their ad agency and the Mills Group. So we're gonna hear about what they've reported out, and I'm sure it's not over yet. We've been working on this since January 19th. It's our first meeting, and we meet every few months. And so this process is for both our town, Bolivar, and for Shepherdstown. So it's really cool. Should be beautiful, and it's gonna. You'll see. I don't know. Actually, I don't know what they're gonna present yet. They haven't said anything. It's gonna be a mystery to me, so I get to see it on June 30th.
Anything else, Jerry?
Yes, we've all been very proud of the publicity and the Harper's Ferry and recognition that Harper's Ferry has been receiving. And the latest, we're even recognized in music, and I want to call your attention to a fantastic song written and performed by Christian Lopez, Harper's Ferry. It was a fantastic video on Harper's Ferry that features many of our stores as well as our historic sites, and we discovered it, and it is on Apple Music, and on Facebook you can see the video that it does a beautiful job of showing different parts of the town. So now we not only had the journalism and the magazine recognition, now we're recognized in the music world. So I think the album is Magdalena. It's one of the songs that he wrote on that, and I've become more familiar with him. Originally, it was from Martinsburg, and so Harper's Ferry represented a return for him to his roots.
We're
happy.
He's like on the point, but he's like outside the.
Yeah, so
area.
yeah, saw that.
Any other council report? Discussion action on Ridge Street Trail, and who had that?
That's.
Oh, can I give a career report first?
Sure.
Okay. Let's see, maybe while you get set up. I wanted to tell everyone the final Canal Town Partnership of the Year will be Wednesday in Williamsport, and elections will be held. Abby Ricketts of Brunswick will be stepping down as chair due to term limits. She's been a big supporter of Harper's Ferry Bolivar in several ways, especially on the Byron Bridge. And I wish to thank her for all her work. I'm currently vice chair of the partnership. Since that office is not up for election this year, I'll be continuing that role. On June 3rd, Brunswick was formally installed as an official AT community. I was not able to attend the picnic installation, but Sharma Quarles Bolivar was there along with Steve Parody. Welcoming letters were presented from both Mayor Vaughn and Mayor Detmer. Sharma, Kathy Baldo, and I will be meeting with a group from the Canal Trust in Lower Town this Friday. We expect to share with them some of the issues and involvement of Harper's Ferry Bolivar with the CNO. And I'll be leading a post-meeting walk to the Byron Bridge to talk about the need for improvements on the access and our anticipation for that construction to occur in 2024. And as you all may have noticed, Harper's Ferry is in its busiest season for through hikers making their way through town on their Georgia to Maine walk. Trail and Town Alliance is once again working with Warrior Expeditions to host and help military veterans hiking the trail in that program. We have a nice little committee of volunteers to help with hosting, shuttling, and other needs. But if others are interested in joining that committee, you could use more help. Hiker Melvin stayed 2 nights with one of our hosts and is now well into New York. Ed Willis and I, even as I talk, are hosting 2 more of the veterans tonight, and others are expected soon. So thanks to all of the community members who have stepped up to that worthwhile effort.
Thank you, Chris. You want to introduce?
Yeah, Lexi Grant has presented much of the idea of the Ridge Street Connector before, it's been quite some time. That led to a memorandum of understanding between the town and Trail and Town Alliance through the Historic Town Foundation. And Trail and Town has been pretty busy over in Woodpecker Woods over the last couple of years, but we would like to activate and get approval to move forward on the Ridge Street connector that we initially presented. So Lexi, take it away.
I'm Lexi Grant. You get the lights.
They're back there.
Thank you. So I'm Lexi Grant. I'm on the Trail and Town Alliance, and as Chris mentioned, this is a follow-up on, well, it's an idea that's been around for a long time. We're just trying to shepherd it forward. But I first presented this to council in December of 2021. And last year we signed an MOU, and part of the requirement of that was to give you updates on where we are. So I'm going to just do a quick review. This will only take 3 or 4 minutes. But this is the map that we're working with. Some of you have walked this with us, which is pretty cool. If anyone else ever wants to do that, let me know. I'm happy to take you. But this trail, there's an existing trail already on the east end of West Ridge Street, and you can see on the left side of the map, the 2 entrances there, those already exist. We want to continue to build the trail so it goes all the way across over to East Ridge Street. And everything, this is all on town land, so like there's the shaded red part, that's all town land. And just to orient you, this is Washington Street. You can see on the bottom, that's where Bolivar Bread is. The green on the left, that's what we used to call the Women's Park. And we did a really big trash cleanup in here last year in this town land area, so it's much cleaner and more natural looking in there than it used to be. The big reason we want to build this trail is to increase walkability, mainly for residents, and especially with this trail, it'll be really functional. So it'll give us a way to walk to Lower Town all the way on trails, so we can avoid Washington Street if we choose to. And long term, the big idea is to connect this trail to Woodpecker Woods, which is all on DNR land, so that you can walk entirely on trails from Lower Town up to Bolivar Heights. It'd be pretty cool. Updates since we signed the MOU last year. The first is, we believe now, after looking more closely at the land, that we don't need a survey. It's pretty clearly marked. It's all on town land, and it's pretty clearly marked on the maps. And we have some existing boundary markers, so we believe that we can safely build the trail without getting a survey. And aside from the signage, which we will eventually need some signage, we anticipate no added costs for the town beyond what we've already budgeted. Our approach to building these trails is really low impact, so we use the services that are and the materials that are already in the woods. The rock and soil that's already there, and we don't need stairs, so this is a relatively simple build for this particular piece. If you want to get a sense for the look and feel of these projects, you can see the other things we've worked on. The photo on the left is Woodpecker Woods. That's still in progress, so some of it's like just roughed in, it's not perfect yet. But this is a picture of what we're doing in there. And then on the right side is Bolivar Nature Park. That's a completed project. We do maintain that regularly now. But if you want to get a sense for how natural it's going to feel, that's a good place to check it out. So our ask here is we'd like to have permission to move forward with the trail construction for this segment. And that's it. That's it for today. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Can you go back to the slide with the map?
Yes.
So the connector trail is which one of those?
I'll show you. So this entire red thing is the connector trail. This already exists right here, all the way to the stream. That already exists. This one is more heavily used. We recently added this one, so this is already there. What we want to build is this piece that goes all the way there.
And then that's, can you talk more specifically about the methods that will be used to ensure the trail is built? Especially where it's close,
Yes.
close to private property, that there isn't encroachment on private land.
Yes, we have someone in our group who is obsessed with maps. He can't be here tonight. But he is absolutely obsessed with the maps, and he can tell you where the discrepancies are. But he's been looking at it really closely to make sure that we can make a clear path here so that we're not on any private land.
May I add to that, please? I have property, basically landlocked property. And basically everybody on the Van Wert area. And I love the projects, but we're very concerned about safety. Because this trail is passing, of course, these streets were never bothered with for I don't know how many years. And then now we're trying to establish those boundaries. And we find that my house is built within 7 feet of the boundary. There are houses that are built in the trail itself. So for all these years, nobody has bothered to look at the stuff. And now we're getting into it, but now we're very concerned about safety. Is the town going to provide a full-time police person to be on that trail? Because that's the only way we're going to be safe. Somebody has to be policing that place all the time. We have to have cameras. And who's going to say that the trail is only open from this time to this time? And if they show up at 8, 10 o'clock and scare everybody, we're going to shoot everybody who shows up. I mean, we really have big issues with this. So, and of course, we never have been approached by the town or anybody on how this is going to work out for all of us. And I believe the town should be more concerned with the citizenry. We, the ones who own the land, the ones who pay the taxes, than somebody who just comes who wants to walk around. So I think we need to get together with these and really look at all the issues we have and the security we have, because I have never had to worry about in my area other than the bear that occasionally comes by. And now I need to have people coming around at all times of the night, or people I don't even have any idea who they are, coming within 7 feet of my house. So how are we going to work this out?
One, this is not near your house, this is on between West Ridge and East.
I understand, but this is the plan. You already have a plan for all these things.
Well,
Currently addressing this trip.
each section of that trail must, according to the MOU, each section that is developed has to be approved by the town, section by section.
I understand.
So this request that Lexi's presenting is between West Ridge and East Ridge.
Well, except this week I was requested to remove certain things that supposedly are on that trail that have been there for the last 10 years. So already requests are being made to vacate that paper street. And the idea is everybody on that already was sent a request. Do you want to bring it? Already was sent a request. Now, did everybody on this whole trail on Van Wert was sent the same paper for everybody to vacate or take out of the trail of that paper street? The same thing as I was.
That may be addressed, but it's not part of.
It's not part of this.
Well,
It's not part of this.
okay.
That's a separate issue.
If there is any private development in this stretch, it's illegal. And there is not.
Okay, so.
Well, in mine, there is it illegal? The town never did anything for 200 years.
Okay, well, we can deal with that one when that one comes up, okay?
Okay.
We're just dealing with this one right now.
But the
okay?
process on this, if it happens, it has to come to council. And at that time, these things can be discussed and would be actionable.
So the town would approach the owners as it goes.
The one, I believe the requirement, as Chris describes it, is it has to come before town council before anything can happen.
Okay. Well, I already was ordered to move things from that paper street.
It would not have had to do with trails.
Right.
It would could have been for another reason. I'm
But
not
that's
sure.
where the trail is supposed to go.
I don't know.
That's a separate issue.
But it hasn't come before.
Let us deal with that one if and when it comes up, okay?
Okay,
Fair enough?
fair enough.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's turn the lights on a minute. Is there any other questions from the council regarding this?
The other one, is there a formal agreement with the women's club? There's the spur, or is that more notional?
Oh, that pink one down there,
Yeah,
disregard that. That was on Tim and Sharon's land.
okay.
Yeah,
And-
that one.
So just be strictly.
That was an agreement with them, yeah.
East Ridge and then along the course, the loop.
Yeah, the Women's Club is supportive, though.
I've got a couple of questions, Chris, if I may. Sure. Has this been before the planning commission?
It has. It, in the sense that it is part of the comprehensive plan from 2013, which calls for parks and trails to be developed on the paper streets and along the corridors.
Yeah, I think this needs. Just wait long, I think this needs to go. Before the planning commission, because I have in front of me that I'm looking up there now, but I have right here, the planning commission. Ordinance, the article, and. Something like this clearly falls within the jurisdiction of the planning commission. To review this. And then come forward with a recommendation to the council, and if that hasn't occurred. I've highlighted the areas, Chris, that specifically deal with land use, and trails, and those types of things. So I think maybe it would be beneficial for the planning commission. To take this up officially. And one other thing, have the nearby property owners been provided an opportunity to opine on this?
The ones on East Ridge have. And are supportive. I'm one of those. Actually, and on West Ridge.
Several have, there is one new property owner there that I don't know if you.
Yeah, Nina's here tonight as a newcomer, and probably we have not talked with her about it. We have cleared part of her backyard for her part of her moving.
Well, when you talk to them, which you all have documentation. From the property owners that on such and such a date. I met with so-and-so and I was provided an opportunity to blah, blah, blah. And you have a document of record saying that the current resident or property owner really doesn't have a specific issue.
You mean
That
adjacent,
exists.
adjacent to the land, because
Pardon
it's
me?
all town land, you mean adjacent to the land, the property owner is adjacent to the land.
So you do have a record.
No, we can do that.
Yes.
There's not that
I
many.
think that would be helpful in the record. I'm trying to keep this thing as clean as possible.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I will say, I mean, planning can certainly work at this. This, especially this particular corridor has been kind of considered over multiple administrations. It was part of the plan at Parks and Rec. What?
2015, I have a placard
Yeah.
from 2015.
And I also, I mean, Jerry may know more about this than I do, but one of the lots where we expand from the paper street to an actual town-owned lot was donated by Georgia and Bob DuBose, partly to preserve green space and to with the interest in trails there. Right, donated to the town.
And you and I met it here along with, what was the gentleman's name?
With Jacob Stetz.
Jacob, and we all agreed, and I agree that this is a low hanging fruit, but even though it's a low hanging fruit, it's been discussed in the past ad nauseum. I still think if we're gonna do this, let's do it right. So that we are not questioned 3 months from now by a property owner who. Whatever raises some kind of an issue, I just think that we need to be. Upfront, more visible, and go the extra step to get endorsements. Or oppositions from property owners so that we know what we're dealing with. We being you guys and guyettes know what we're dealing with here with regard to this issue. I think it's, so what, it takes us another month to go online with this thing, Chris. Maybe it's worth going to the planning commission, getting their endorsement, coming back to the full town council, having letters of endorsement or opposition to property owners. We have a nice neat package and we go with it and we vote on it. That's what I'm suggesting, council.
And I'm very excited for the trail, but I agree that it could also improve the project. That by getting input, there may be things that will come out of it, or certainly having the assurance, particularly about the boundaries. Since even when it is a paper street, it is public land, we should not be shackled from doing what's in the comprehensive plan, but at the same time, the most buy-in that we can get is ideal.
Well, I have a comment, just that, so you're, on the east side, that's the East Ridge folks, on the west side, that's the West Ridge folks, but also there are the people on the south side and north side, we may need to include them and people to ask, notify, to get their comments, to notify them of what's being done. If, for instance, we have public hearing about it.
Let's make a motion. I move to refer the East and West Ridge Street Connector Trails Planning Commission for review. And that the project should ensure that all adjacent property owners have been notified and that their notification and reaction has been recorded. Yes, Kevin, I will send that to you.
Thank you, Chris. Second on motion. Second from Jerry, discussion on the motion. All those in favor of that motion? Opposed?
And I'm going to abstain.
Okay. We have 6 favor and 1 abstaining for conflict, correct?
Thank you.
Thank you. Chris.
Yeah, thank you for these.
Storm, we got the storm.
Oh, yes. I'll take this quick update on the stormwater plan. The stormwater and green infrastructure plan open house arranged by Region 9 and led by the project contractors Thrasher took place on May 18th at the Bolivar Community Center. Both towns were well represented by elected officials and other citizens. There are around 30 people in attendance. The draft green infrastructure and stormwater conceptual master plan was presented by Thrasher, including exhibits showing different stormwater technologies that would be in use in settings throughout both towns and the national park. A positive and constructive public discussion took place, and thank you to everyone who attended and participated. And the next steps will be that Thrasher will incorporate the feedback from the session into the master plan, and once that is complete, the town will work with Region 9 to fund and conduct a detailed engineering plan. Any questions?
I was at that meeting, yeah, I'm sure a lot of others were here. Yes.
All right, thank you, Storm. New business discussion action regarding town council endorsement West Virginia Attorney General opioid settlement agreement with Kroger. Just as background, I got received correspondence from West Virginia AG regarding the opioid settlements. As you may recall, we would, I think from January or whenever the first one came through, we've gone through about 6 of these that we've approved. This is the Kroger settlement, $68 million. And we have not seen any money from any of the other 6 or 5. I don't anticipate in the near future. So this will be a while, but what we are asking now, Patty, you need to help me on this. You're the shepherd of this stuff. What is the AG asking for?
For you to sign this document, just like the other 5 or 6 that we signed, it's more of a formality.
Yeah, this is the, we've dealt with Kroger before, but this is a follow-up letter to the Kroger thing, and basically, I think Kroger may be the first one that's going to go forward with actual divvying out the $68 million. So this is the first time we've had step 2 in this process, and it's Kroger. It's just basically, I have to endorse the previous agreement with the AG that we all agreed to, the Attorney General of West Virginia. So all this is formality. Patty's got a whole folder full of the Kroger settlement. It requires 1 signature on page 92 or whatever. So I'm just asking regular authorization for my signature to go forward. And we will probably all be in the home by the time we get money.
I move to approve endorsement of West Virginia Attorney General opioid settlement agreement with Kroger.
Thank you. Have a second, Chris, discussion on the motion.
I will say Laurel Craig first brought this up, but when these funds do accrue, one of the best uses may be programs that we can contribute to that might provide resources such as a hotline that could serve our community, but since we're so small, they can help those efforts.
Would the question, would the money be coming to us at the town or does it go to the town?
Goes to the town, goes to the municipal government.
Okay, so it's not gonna be the.
It's not gonna be
situation-
public.
It's not gonna be the situation of county commission throwing it out. That's good.
Any other discussions?
There's no going out.
Yeah. Clause in favor of the motion.
I was doling to oneself, still doling.
Kevin, you've got the next item?
Yes. So this is a discussion and action on a resolution concerning the LGBTQ plus community. As you probably know, this is Pride Month, LGBTQ Pride Month. And so I'll read the resolution that we have before us. So it's entitled Resolution Affirming Harpers Ferry Support of the LGBTQ plus community and declaring LGBTQ plus Pride Month. Whereas Harpers Ferry has a long history of support for diversity, is committed to equality for all, and in 2013 passed an LGBTQ plus inclusive non-discrimination ordinance. And whereas the month of June is recognized as Pride Month in remembrance of the first organized gay rights resistance protest in June 1969 against a law enforcement raid of the Stonewall Inn, an LGBTQ plus club in New York City, and who are now recognized as pioneers in the LGBTQ plus movement for equality. And whereas LGBTQ plus people across the state and nation face disparities in employment, healthcare, housing, and many other areas central to the pursuit of happiness. And whereas the state of West Virginia has no explicit ban on discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity in the workplace, housing, or public accommodations. And whereas there has been a sharp increase in anti-LGBTQ plus legislation, statutes, and local ordinances in the United States, representing a significant and nationwide attack on the rights of LGBTQ plus people, including laws specifically targeting transgender persons' access to health care and participation in sports activities, and laws attempting to prohibit drag performances, an LGBTQ plus art form long shared with and enjoyed by the larger community. And whereas LGBTQ plus people, in particular transgender individuals, face a disproportionately high risk of becoming victims of violent hate crimes. And whereas by protecting the rights of every individual, we enhance and strengthen the value of everyone through our entire society. Now therefore be it resolved that the town council of the Corporation of Harpers Ferry affirms its support of the rights, freedoms, and equal treatment of the LGBTQ plus community, condemns all violence, hatred, and discrimination against LGBTQ plus people, acknowledges that LGBTQ plus rights are human rights that are to be protected, stands in opposition to all legislation, statutes, or local ordinances that erode the safety, health, civil rights, or bodily autonomy of LGBTQ plus people, supports efforts to ensure the equal treatment of all people, regardless of sexual orientation and gender identity, and therefore declares June 2023 as LGBTQ plus Pride Month in Harpers Ferry.
Thank you, Kevin. We have a motion. Derek? We have a second on the motion to approve, Laurel, discussion on the motion to approve resolution.
Yeah.
Derek?
I'm very proud of the fact that Harpers Ferry was one of the first communities to adopt a non-discrimination law in 2013 to protect as far as we could. I mean, what we could do legally was limited, but to protect gay and lesbian, LGBTQ people from discrimination in housing and public accommodations, since that we're not covered by Title VII. But unfortunately, this is also the 7th anniversary tonight of the massacre at the Pulse Club in Miami, which, sorry, Orlando, which shows, unfortunately, every time there are games, whether it be by other minorities such as Black African American people or other minorities, there is sometimes a backlash against that by people who want to scare other people about people who are different or the others. And unfortunately, in the last year, this type of resolution is particularly important because we see even seeing in our county government efforts to in the guise of protecting children, efforts basically to downgrade and treat LGBTQ people, particularly transgender people, as the other, as people you should be afraid of. And we need to add our voice to those. I mean, the progress we've made in the last years has been remarkable, as evidenced. My husband and I been together 40 years, and it was only the last few years that we were able to get married. And so we've seen tremendous progress, and we don't want to see that turned back, because it's not going to be, just like the Jews found in Germany. They may come for someone else first, but the minorities represented by the LGBTQ plus people will not be the last. That the people who want to maintain power and superiority over others will attempt to do. So I think this is an extremely important revolution, and I hope that, as we have done in the past, that we will vigorously support it.
I agree. I went to that county commission meeting. I heard about it as an ally. And it was heartening. Over a dozen people spoke against the measure. All kinds of people spoke against the measure. Not one person stood up in defense of it. And then they had the discussion behind closed doors. And I really thought that was shameful. So thank you for putting this ordinance together. I think it's very important for all the reasons that the ordinance says, and also Jerry, what you described.
Yeah, Sean, any other discussion?
I want to echo what Jerry said. I feel very proud to live in a little town with a rainbow flag flying from town hall and from the town park, and also have felt welcomed and safe in this little town since owning property there since 2001, and also feel safe when my mixed race family comes here and visits. I feel comfortable taking them on walks around town and saying hi to the neighbors and introducing them. There are unfortunate things happening not only at the county level, but it may be even worse things at the state level. And my hope is that we can send this resolution to our state delegate, our state senators, and all of our commission members to make this little town's feelings known.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Kevin?
Yeah, I want to echo what Chris said about Harpers Ferry being a very welcoming community. In 2009, I became recognized by the Victory Fund as the first out gay public official and elected official in West Virginia history. And I don't think that could have happened in very many places across this state. Harpers Ferry has always been very welcoming. I've never felt any kind of discrimination for anyone. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And we need to promote that message to the broader world. that gay and lesbian and transgender people are not monsters to be afraid of. We're not trying to erode society or anything like that. We just want to live and have the same rights as everyone else in this country.
Any other discussion?
I guess I want to commend the eloquence of Jerry and the rest of you for. I also feel proud of supporting this amendment and that this is coming out of our little town. I just feel proud that you voted.
Thank you, Laura. Anything else? All those in favor of approving the resolution?
Aye.
Thank you.
Could the record be, when you send this out to these other places, can you tell it's unanimous? Well,
Yeah, sure.
I mean, the town is really behind you.
And Kevin, when you put that in the final, change Gregory.
Okay. And since you said that, of course, when in 2013, so 10 years ago now, we passed our non-discrimination ordinance, also with unanimous.
Yeah. And I think for the record, we skipped one paragraph in reading regarding international, but
It's being removed.
oh, that's being okay.
on the mayor's recommendation.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
Okay, before I adjourn, tomorrow, I want to invite every certified voter in this room to get out and vote if you haven't voted already. And to all the candidates that are in here, there are 5 at the table and 1, 2, 3 in the back. Best of luck to all of you tomorrow. A motion to adjourn from Chris, we have Storm seconded at 9:07, and we all voted